Your savings account had $10,000 in it 5 years ago. You didn't touch it. You were responsible. You were smart. But today, that same $10,000 can only buy what $8,000 could back then. You didn't spend it. You didn't lose it. Someone took it from you. And here's the betrayal. Your own government will never call it a tax. They'll never send you a bill. They'll never even acknowledge they're taking your money. But they are. Every single day. While you sleep, while you work, while you save. They call it monetary policy. Economists call it necessary. But what it really is the largest wealth transfer in human history, happening right under your nose. In the next 18 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how this silent tax works, who profits from it, and most importantly, how you can stop being a victim. Stay with me. Welcome back to Leo Invest, where we cut through the financial noise and give you the truth about money, investing, and building real wealth. If you're new here, this channel is all about empowering you to take control of your financial future. We break down complex topics into actionable strategies you can use today. Do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Why? Because the information I'm about to share with you is something most people will never understand, and that lack of understanding is costing them thousands every single year. All right, let's dive in. So what is this silent tax I'm talking about? It's inflation. Now, I know what you're thinking. Inflation, that's not new. We all know about inflation. But here's the thing. Most people don't actually understand how inflation functions as a tax, who it taxes the most, and why it's one of the most regressive wealth transfers in modern society. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're a middle-class worker. You make $50,000 a year. You manage to save $5,000 annually. You're doing everything right. Budgeting, cutting unnecessary expenses, putting money away for emergencies and retirement. Now, let's say inflation is running at 4% per year. That might not sound like much. The media might even call it moderate. But here's what's really happening. That $5,000 you saved loses $200 of purchasing power in just 1 year. Not because you made a bad investment, not because you spent it, simply because you held on to it. Over 10 years, at 4% annual inflation, your $50,000 in savings loses approximately $16,000 in purchasing power. That's almost a third of your money. Gone. Vanished into thin air. But it didn't vanish, did it? Energy doesn't disappear, it transforms. Wealth doesn't disappear either. It transfers. And that's where the tax comes in. Because when your money loses value, someone else is gaining that value. When your purchasing power shrinks, someone else's purchasing power expands. Who benefits? We'll get to that. But first, you need to understand the mechanism. Inflation is primarily caused by one thing, an increase in the money supply. Think of it like this. Imagine there are 100 apples in the world and $100 in circulation. Each apple costs $1. Now, what happens if the government prints another $100, but the number of apples stays the same? You now have $200 chasing 100 apples. Basic supply and demand tells us those apples are now going to cost $2 each. Your dollar didn't change physically, but its purchasing power was cut in half. This is exactly what happens in the real economy, just on a massive scale. Since 2020, the United States alone has increased its money supply by over 40%. Let me say that again. 40% more dollars were created in just a few years. Did the amount of goods and services in the economy increase by 40%? No. Did productivity skyrocket by 40%? Absolutely not. So what happened? Prices went up. Your rent, your groceries, your gas, your healthcare. Everything got more expensive. Not because those things became more valuable, but because your money became less valuable. And here's the kicker. The government measures inflation using something called the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. They tell you inflation is 3%, maybe 4%. But have you actually felt like things only got 3% more expensive? Of course not. because the CPI excludes or underweights the things that hit your wallet the hardest: housing costs, healthcare, education, energy. Your real, lived inflation rate is likely double or triple what the government reports. Why do they lowball it? Because inflation is tied to government obligations. Social security payments, pensions, inflation-adjusted bonds, all of these increase with official inflation. The lower they report inflation, the less they have to pay out. It's not conspiracy, it's incentive structure, and you're paying the price. So let's talk about winners and losers in the inflation game. The losers. First and foremost, savers. Anyone holding cash or cash equivalent assets is getting absolutely destroyed. Your savings account, your checking account, that emergency fund you worked so hard to build, all losing value every single day. Second, fixed income earners. Retirees on pensions, workers with stagnant wages, anyone whose income doesn't increase with inflation. Your paycheck might say the same number, but it buys less and less each year. Third, the middle class. You bear the brunt of inflation because you hold more cash relative to your assets than the wealthy do, and you have less ability to negotiate wages or move assets quickly. The winners. First, debtors, especially the biggest debtor of all time, the government. When you owe money and inflation happens, you're paying back that debt with cheaper dollars. The U.S. government owes over $36 trillion. If inflation runs at 4% annually, the real value of that debt shrinks by over $1 trillion every year. They're inflating away their debt burden, and you're paying for it. Second, asset owners. People who own real estate, stocks, commodities, businesses, these assets tend to appreciate with or above inflation. Third, banks and financial institutions. They borrow at low rates and lend at higher rates. They benefit from the spread, and they're first in line to receive newly created money from central banks, a phenomenon called the Cantillon effect. Here's what that means. When new money is created, it doesn't spread evenly through the economy like water. It enters at specific points, usually through banks and large financial institutions. By the time that money reaches you, prices have already started rising. The people closest to the money printer get to spend the new money at old prices. Everyone else gets stuck with higher prices and devalued savings. It's a transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class to the wealthy and connected, and it happens invisibly, silently, year after year. This is why I call it a tax. It's regressive, it's mandatory, and it redistributes wealth, just like a tax, except you can't vote on it, you can't protest it, and most people don't even know it's happening. All right, let's bring this home with some real-world numbers. In 1970, the median home price in the United States was about $17,000. Today, it's over $400,000. Did houses become 23 times better? No, your dollar became 23 times weaker. In 1980, a year of college tuition at a public university cost about $800. Today, over $10,000. That's more than a 12x increase. A new car in 1990 cost around $16,000. Today, the average is pushing $48,000. Meanwhile, wages haven't kept up. The purchasing power of the average worker has been stagnant for decades. You work just as hard, probably harder, but you're falling behind. This is the silent tax in action. Let me give you a personal example. Let's say you're 30 years old and you plan to retire at 65. That's 35 years from now. If you save $100,000 over the next decade and just hold it in a checking account, and inflation averages 4% per year, by the time you're 65, that $100,000 will have the purchasing power of about $25,000 in today's dollars. You saved $100,000, but you can only buy what $25,000 buys today. 3/4 of your wealth erased, not by reckless spending, not by bad luck, by inflation. And here's the cruel irony. The people who are responsible, who scrimp and save, who delay gratification, who live below their means, they're the ones holding cash and they're the ones getting robbed. Meanwhile, someone who took on a mortgage, bought property, invested in stocks, or even just spent their money immediately, they're better off. The system punishes savers and rewards spenders and debtors. Think about that for a second. Really think about it. What kind of society does that create? Alright, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk about what you can do to protect yourself from this silent tax. Strategy number 1, minimize cash holdings. I'm not saying don't have an emergency fund, you absolutely should, but don't keep more cash than you need for 3 to 6 months of expenses. Everything beyond that should be working for you. Strategy number 2, invest in assets. Stocks, real estate, commodities, even certain cryptocurrencies, these are stores of value that tend to keep pace with or exceed inflation. Historically, the stock market returns about 10% annually, which comfortably beats inflation over time. Real estate is particularly powerful because you can leverage it, buy a property with a mortgage, and inflation actually works in your favor by eroding the real value of your debt while your property appreciates. Strategy number 3, invest in yourself. Your earning power is your greatest asset. Inflation-proof your income by developing skills, building a side business, or negotiating raises that match or exceed real inflation, not the fake government number. Strategy number 4, consider inflation-protected securities. Treasury inflation-protected securities, or TIPS, adjust with inflation. I-bonds are another option. They won't make you rich, but they preserve purchasing power. Strategy number 5, diversify internationally. Don't keep all your wealth in one currency. Consider assets denominated in stronger currencies or in countries with lower inflation rates. Strategy number 6, hard assets and commodities. Gold, silver, even Bitcoin. These are assets with limited supply. They can't be printed into existence. Many investors use them as hedges against currency debasement. The key principle is this: get your wealth out of depreciating currency and into appreciating assets. Stop thinking like a saver and start thinking like an investor, because in an inflationary environment, cash is not king, it's a melting ice cube. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Inflation is not an accident. It's not a natural phenomenon like the weather. It's a policy choice. Governments and central banks choose to inflate the money supply because it allows them to fund massive spending without directly raising taxes. It's politically easier to devalue everyone's money slowly than to ask for higher taxes up front. But the result is the same. Wealth is taken from you, just invisibly. The good news, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you understand how it works, you can position yourself on the winning side of this wealth transfer. Will inflation ever stop? Probably not. The incentives are too strong, but you can stop being a victim of it. Take action, educate yourself, protect your wealth, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you found this valuable, and I really hope you did, do smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. Tell me, how has inflation affected your life? Have you noticed your purchasing power declining? What strategies are you using to fight back? Until next time, this is Leo Invest, reminding you to stay smart, stay informed, and take control of your financial future. See you in the next one.